Hi, today we'll be talking about the hardware components of a computer, what the main things inside a computer are that make it work, and what exactly they do. Most of what you'll see in this video will apply to all types of computers, but there might be some special cases. To keep things simple, we're just going to look at the important parts in a desktop PC. If you open up a desktop computer, you'll see a large circuit. This is the motherboard. The motherboard is a circuit that connects together all the components we're going to be talking about. The first major part is the CPU, or Central Processing Unit. A lot of times you will hear people use the analogy that this is the brain of a computer. The CPU is responsible for managing the whole system, and it contains the circuitry actually needed to make your computer run a program. So, if you have a piece of software like Firefox, Microsoft Word, or a game, that software is just instructions that end up running on the CPU one at a time. To actually work, however, the CPU needs some help from other parts in the computer. Also connected to the computer's motherboard is primary memory, or in the case of desktop computers, it's usually RAM, random access memory. A computer needs memory sort of for the same reason you would use scratch paper to work out a problem. It's kind of like a place that the CPU can write down data as it's doing something. So, if your computer is doing something like averaging up scores in a gradebook, as it works through the problem, it saves its work into memory. We'll examine the example of adding up grades. So, initially, the CPU would run an instruction that says set something in the memory called grade to 0. Then the next instruction would say add 0.95 to that value in memory. Next instruction might say add 0.98 to that grade in the memory. Next, it would say add 0.85 to that value in memory, and finally, it would say to divide that value in memory by 3. As an example, let's take a look inside of this computer. This is just a normal desktop computer laid on its side. Here, we open up the case to look at the inside. This is the large motherboard that was pictured earlier in the video. There's a lot of extra stuff plugged in here, but the parts that we're most concerned about are the CPU and the RAM. Let's take a closer look. The CPU is housed underneath this large fan and cooler. The RAM can be found right next to it on this motherboard, seated in these 3 slots in this example. Here's an image of some of the RAM taken out of its slots. So to review, a CPU is a piece of hardware that runs instructions, and primary memory is hardware that lets the CPU store data as it runs. Of course, there are many more important parts inside of a computer, but these are some of the most important parts if we want to talk about how a computer actually works. Now, another important part of computer systems are its input and output devices. So, some examples of input devices are the keyboard on a computer, the mouse, maybe your computer has a webcam, that would also be a type of input device. The microphone I'm recording this video with is even an input device. Some examples of output devices would be the computer monitor, speakers, or headphones. There are some devices that are both input and output. For example, a smartphone that connects to the internet has a device inside it called a network interface controller. It's an input device because it lets your phone get data from the internet, and it is also an output device because it lets your phone send data to the internet. In conclusion, we learned about the CPU, memory, input devices, and output devices.